Okay, we should be live.
All right.
No fanfare as usual when we're live. There's no extra music and background and whatnot, but it. And there's the first throat clearing of the evening. What? You didn't think I was going to point that out the first time you did that?
Yeah.
So anyway, welcome back everyone for the final live extravaganza, spectacular, whatever the fuck you want to call it, GMOAT episode while we're in our holiday phase. We'll be back with you next Wednesday for an official episode that we'll be recording in a few days. So that'll be next Wednesday. And we will be covering Alfred Hitchcock's Sabotage from 1936. I'm getting some feedback. Is anybody else having a problem?
No.
Okay. Well,
Heard a little bit.
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, all right. So we will be live with that, and it does appear that we are live right now. So I'll just make sure that that's going. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so continuing on, we will be available with our episode of Sabotage, which will be with our previous guest, Mike Emmel, who was on for Anatomy of Murder with us not too long ago. I believe almost 2 seasons ago at this point. But specifically, we are here at the request of our most frequent guest to discuss our movies and menus extravaganza from the holiday season that was. So the first one we covered, and I think most people have probably seen a few of our photos or different things that we did, the menu items at some point or another on any of our socials. So if you don't follow us on any of our socials, at GMOAT Podcast, GMOAT Podcast, wherever you get your social media. And first up, we had our evening. Well, everybody was coming in on the 23rd. Let's say that. My sister Allison was coming in with her husband, and so we needed something lighter fare. So we went with sandwiches, for which I specifically tried to gear that around a movie that is fairly rewatchable. It's fairly light. I don't think anybody, in fact, Keith, my brother in law, who is an avid critic of most films, even said he enjoyed it because of its simplicity. So I got recommendations or accommodations for that, which is high praise. But we specifically paired the movie Chef by Jon Favreau, starring Jon Favreau, Sofia Vergara, John Leguizamo, Oliver Platt, and MJ Anthony, with the Cuban sandwich or a grilled cheese sandwich, which are both made during the course of the film, specifically because at least my sister and brother in law do not eat pork for some unknown reason. But we also had some fried sweet plantains, and because he makes a pasta aglio e olio during the course of the film, we also had that as kind of like a side dish, like pastaroni kind of thing. So, but of course, better. So, first off, from a food standpoint, Dad, how was it?
Good. I enjoyed the pasta a lot more than I um, thought I would because it was rather plain. But it was good. And the sandwiches, I can't do a true Cuban simply because I don't like pickles.
I was going to say, I think the pickles made the sandwich. The roast pork was really good. The seasonings on it were good. And of course, the grilled bread was grilled bread, which is great. But I think the pickle put in there with the mustard just made the sandwich.
I would agree.
So
The one drawback that I have is it's supposed to be a pulled pork instead of like the roast pork, and so it became a little difficult to bite off because it was a little firmer yet.
yeah, I had to do it that way because if you recall, we were not going to have food that night. We thought we were going to go to our own trivia competition, and then they canceled it at the last minute. So then I had to go put the roast in late. So it didn't get the pull apart, the real soft, because I had to cook it a little bit faster. So it was a little more difficult to work with. But the taste was really good. I really like the seasoning. So I think at some point we're going to have to retry that with the slow roasted pork and the the crock pot or in the oven and try that over again. But I also made the grilled cheese sandwiches the way that Dad and I took a master class on making a really good grilled cheese sandwich, which uses 3 or 4 different cheeses and then some spicy brown mustard in the center, and then pressed with the sandwich presses, which I used for the Cubans too. And again, Keith said that had to be one of the best grilled cheese sandwiches he'd ever eaten. And he really thought he wasn't sure how the mustard was going to go, but wanted to try it and actually really enjoyed it and said he would do it that way again. So I think the sandwiches themselves were a hit. The pasta is always a hit in our house, and the fried plantains, I think they were much better with the cinnamon sugar.
Yeah.
I think maybe they were a little green yet. Had they been a
Yeah.
little bit riper, I think that would have been good. They'd sat there for a couple of days, but I don't think they were quite ripe enough to be fried. They weren't mushy, so yeah. But that may be a do-over for another time just to try it and see if it works better. But I think the sandwiches were good, and I
Nice.
enjoyed the movie thoroughly because it was about cooking.
Well, you're
So
getting ahead of me now. But as far as the pasta, I don't even have it in front of me. But anyway, the pasta can be paired with a lot of things. And I think
hmm
because it's a simplistic thing and it doesn't have a protein with it, it can be like a side to, let's say you have like a tuna steak. That would be
right,
an easy
Yes.
yeah.
accommodating thing to add to something else. The only difference between his and yours, it looked like from at least from what I could just tell on screen, is his seemed to have more parsley in it. But that
That
was
could
about
be.
it.
So
I think you
like I
missed
said,
that
we were in a
one.
little bit of a hurry and people were coming in and Allison and Keith needed to eat faster and the roast wasn't done yet, so it was kind of in shifts and yeah,
Well,
so
which
that we
was
were
what
at
it
a
was
little
supposed to be.
disadvantage.
We were supposed to eat in shifts when people got there or when they got hungry, and then we'll watch the movie. So,
Right. I don't
but
remember what
since
our cocktails were.
it was the daiquiri number 4, because it was Ernest
Oh,
Yes.
Hemingway's
yeah,
cocktail that he had while he was in Cuba a lot,
yeah.
back when people could still go to Cuba.
So I made the daiquiris and I had never really used Luxardo before, but I thought the daiquiris were really good with the combination of the lime with just the touch of cherry. I think it
Yeah.
was different and I enjoyed it. I'll make those again, I think.
Yeah. So just to note this, and I forgot to mention it in our precursor here as I was reading off the menu and what our selection was and the pairings and everything. We did try to do, at least for the most part, a cocktail pairing with every single one that we did for this. So that's what we mean by a cocktail pairing, is some of them we had multiples, but yeah, for the most part, we had something for each one of these. Now, in this particular case, I think, Dad, you said that it tasted like another one.
Yes. That's a
You partic-
normal. Yeah.
Yeah, you often go towards cherry items to begin with. And so this
Yes.
wasn't my favorite cocktail personally of the ones that we tried, but I wasn't offended by it.
No, it was good. It's
Okay.
not something I would have every day, but
No, but on a hot summer day, I think that would
yeah.
be really good to try again.
I should also note it's the first daiquiri I've ever had.
Really? I'm
Never had one
surprised. Your
before.
grandmother loves daiquiris, and so
I know, but for
she
whatever
will
reason,
often
I've just
order
never
one.
had one.
Hmm.
Now, Mom, I know you'd never watched this film before. Dad, had you caught this?
Yes, you and I watched it.
Okay. I don't recall when that might have been, but either way. So, Mom, you said you enjoyed the movie. What
I
about
did
the movie
enjoy it.
did you enjoy?
I think I liked the whole family aspect of the fact that, the parents were separated. Dad's really trying to do his best. He doesn't know how to relate to his child and the child really wants to be a part of his life and so makes the whole cooking realm to associate with him. And then just watching the child kind of grow and blossom with his experience with his dad and letting them have a better relationship, for me that's heartwarming. So I think I just liked that whole aspect. It was a single dad just trying his best, didn't know how to relate, and then used his career and his food to share that with his son. So it was good.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed. I know that this is one that's slowly grown on me. The first time I watched it, for whatever reason, I thought it was fine, but it wasn't like anything expansive. But the more often I've watched it, the more I appreciate it. And there are some, especially in the second half when they're on the road and getting
Yeah.
towards the end of the movie, I think there are some very good heartstring moments in this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that takes care of dinner for the 23rd. Now, we made the mistake of trying to do two-a-days when it came to the first week of this. So we went to breakfast on the 24th. Now, as both of you may or may not remember, this was the film Rebecca that we watched from 1940, the Best Picture winner by director Sir Alfred Hitchcock, starring Joan Fontaine, Laurence Olivier, Judith Anderson, George Sanders, and Nigel Bruce. It was paired with the breakfast of a large Victorian style buffet with eggs, hash, sausage, bacon, rolls, jam, and coffee, paired with mimosas. So,
Mhm.
first on the menu, not anything like particularly special. We just kind of like wanted to put some breakfast items together and pair it and have basically a movie association with it. The mimosas are something we've had a lot. So nothing new like truly to try here that I can really recall or that I feel like we need to comment on.
Oh, you're not going to comment on Grandma's caramel rolls?
Well, they weren't grandma's, they were your version of grandma's caramel rolls because caramel has two A's in it.
That's not how she pronounced it. That's not how I grew up with
It doesn't
it.
matter. She can be wrong. Just because she's gone doesn't make her infallible.
But they're a family favorite, and so it's always nice to be able to put that on the table for the family because everybody gathers around, and we really only make them anymore at holidays. And so it's always something just a little special.
Best thing
Apparently,
I
you have
ever
very
did.
specific pans.
I
One of them.
do. I do. I even use my grandma's caramel roll pans. So somehow I ended up inheriting those. Back when the kids were small, I spent a week with my grandmother learning how to make them just right. And so somehow when she passed away, my aunts asked me if I wanted the pans that she always used. So yes, I even use the same pans as my grandmother.
As I was trying to say, one of the best things I ever did was encourage you to go and spend that week with
Yeah,
your grandmothers and learn how to make all the old family
yeah.
recipes
That
and
was a
everything.
really special week, and I know the girls were there too, and they really enjoyed their time with their great grandmothers. And yeah, something I will never ever forget. So
All
Yeah, now
right.
all your aunts and cousins are having you teach them.
yes,
Well, I mean, there are worse ways. Now, as for the film, I have seen Rebecca now. I think I watched it originally. You guys had either rented it or something to that capacity when I was like in my teens, like seventh, eighth grade, something like that. And I hadn't watched it again until I wanted to recross it off of the films that I knew I had seen for the best picture list, but didn't really remember a ton about. And I watched this, I want to say like 2021, 2022, something of that capacity. It's one of the last few that I watched again in order to cross it off of that list before I could say I saw every best picture winner. And so I had some recent memory with it. I think this was included in I think this was like number 41 on my submission for the Cinema Legacy poll list as well. But what do you guys recall about the movie before seeing it this time, if anything?
Well, I had actually seen the movie. I think this is my fifth or sixth time seeing it. But I had read the book in high school. It was based on Rebecca de Mornay's or Daphne de Mornay's novel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are two very different people.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm very familiar with this story, and I'm very familiar with the film itself. And it was the first time I really had been exposed to George Sanders, whose plays Swarmy as no one can.
It's smarmy.
I knew he, I knew I would say that and get you to correct me.
Oh yeah, because that was
Mhm.
definitely intentional.
It was.
You shut your mouth when you're talking to me. A famous Rebecca De Mornay line
Yes.
from Wedding Crashers.
Yes.
But anyway, I digress. Mom, did you have any prior relationship with Rebecca that you can recall?
Only that I know that I had seen it a long time before, like you said, when you were young. So it's been almost 20 years, I think, since I saw it the last time. I didn't really remember a whole lot about it. As far as Hitchcock movies go, it's not my most memorable, obviously. So I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed rewatching it. I think I enjoyed it much better this time around. I don't know, maybe I was in a different frame of mind or, just the whole experience of doing the food in the movies.
For whatever reason, and I had this problem through a lot of the holiday movies that we watched. There were very few of them where I found myself in the right frame of mind to really concentrate. And I find this is a movie best when you really can focus in on it, and also when you don't know kind of what the twist is towards
Yeah,
the end of the movie. And so if you've taken some time away from it and you've kind of like forgotten and you come back around to it, it's a much better film that way. And so this time wasn't nearly as memorable for me as it was a few years back. But the reason I put it on the list was to share this with other people. And
right,
that'll be a recurring theme through a lot of the movies that we've done, because some of them are just purely my favorites or maybe they're shared favorites, but there weren't a whole lot of movies on here that at least one or two people hadn't really seen before that we just decided to have.
right.
Okay, so then moving to our dinner from Christmas Eve. And let me see if I can find that here, because for whatever reason, these are not all in order. All right. Then we had our film of the evening was The Conversation, which takes place in San Francisco, as many people know, that involves a lot of seafood in the Bay Area. So we had a lobster tail with butter, seared scallops, Parmesan risotto, and a Caesar salad. Cocktail pairing was two different cocktails from the Bay Area. That was a Pisco Punch, which I did not have the fortune of trying, although I heard it was good, and the Mai Tai, which is obviously very famous around San Francisco. The Conversation is from 1974, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Gene Hackman, Harrison Ford, Cindy Williams, John Cazale, and Phoebe Alexander. Now, first with dinner, the lobster tail. You've been very good at this for a number of years. My only issue is cracking the damn thing off, and some of it got burnt. So then, like the scales, as you're trying to crack it, would like splinter, and so then you'd end up with like this residual in all sorts of places. Like I was picking it off of my shirt the rest of the evening, kind of thing. But I
Okay.
love a good seared scallop. Your risotto was excellent, and the Caesar salad is always a favorite of mine. So I enjoyed this very much, even though it's kind of more of like a return to staple than it is anything particularly new, but it was still fun.
Hmm.
And as for the Mai Tai, on my personal preference, I don't think it was my favorite one, but it's like in the top three of the ones we tried. I did enjoy this one pretty well. So, did either of you try the Pisco Punch?
I did.
Yes.
Sarah and I
Okay, what?
split one, and it was very good. I really enjoyed it. I think, um, or no, I'm sorry, Keith tried it.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sarah
Yeah, I
wasn't
was gonna
there for a
say,
couple of
yeah,
days yet.
but uh, no, I thought it was really delicious. I like the citrus aspect to it. Pisco's got a punch. Seriously, I think it's called that just because it packs a punch. I was
Okay.
familiar with the alcohol pisco because my parents had been down in Chile, and that's their brandy. And so um, Dad came home and had talked about it because they had it everywhere. And Dana and I had bought a couple bottles at Total Wines, so I already had that here. And it was a fun new way to use it. Otherwise, I wasn't sure how to use it. So that was entertaining, getting to know a few new, especially cocktails when I had this alcohol sitting around not sure what to do with it. So yeah, and I thought it complemented our dinner.
I would agree. Dad, what were your thoughts on the dinner and cocktail for the evening there?
Uh, excuse me. The dinner was
Free.
great. Um, we had nice conversations during the dinner. That's the one thing that was the situation with lobster, because you tend to have to savor it more, so you take smaller bites, so it's more conducive to having lengthier conversations over dinner. And leading into Christmas, I thought that was a pretty good way of spending the evening. Um, Mai Tai, I could take or leave it. I like the pisco punch a little better, a little more in my taste. Um, and as far as the risotto went or came really well, and I love scallops.
Okay, now as for the movie selection, this is one that I had never personally watched. It's been on my watch list for a number of years. And so this was a good excuse to kind of take that off my list. I found the film to be a little bit strange at times, but I think that was the intention. Like, nothing about this film feels unintentional, and it feels a little bit eerie in the what would you say it was, the surveillance state,
Yeah.
and knowing kind of, even, I don't remember when was Snowden, was like 2013, 2014, 2015, somewhere in that range, because I know that happened a couple of years prior to the 2016 election. But thinking of how far we've come and how much the US government is truly spying on us, and then these are like private people who are surveilling people. It was an interesting film, to say the least. I definitely understand why people have put it up on a pedestal. Like, if there's a top four of Francis Ford Coppola films, it's Apocalypse Now, The Two Godfathers, and this. But I understand why it's there. And the final moments of the film where he's absolutely tearing apart his apartment to try and figure out how they're surveilling him is
Yes.
disconcerting, to say the least.
Right. I thought too. I thought it was unique thinking back that far to the early 70s and that they were using these apparatuses and they could tell what the people were saying and they were quite a distance away. The technology just I don't remember, of course I was only a very young child, but I don't remember the technology being good enough to outside of bugging a telephone, um, being able to pick up conversations like that. So I think for me that was sort of an education and yeah, it was a little creepy. Um
No, it
to
wasn't.
to think about. You don't think it was? Oh,
No,
I
because compared to where we are now, that was
yeah,
lame. I mean, when the police can go and just send an officer around door to door and collect enough footage from Ring cameras to track people,
yeah, I suppose.
it's nothing anymore.
Yeah, but domestic surveillance, man, I just,
It
I know that the
happens.
I know, I'm very well aware that we basically put ourselves not only in through our social media feed, but just all of the cookies and random things on the internet. Like, every part of us is basically known at any point in time, and people use that to exploit us constantly.
The former,
So
yeah, go ahead.
it's not anything that's like truly strange. I keep commenting on the fact that my Spotify will start to play ads for things that I like, products that I just mentioned, or the fact that I somehow get like Spanish diaper ads because it must pick up my neighbors from across the hall.
I'm drawing yeah, well, they do, because
Yeah.
I have listened to enough interviews and I'm drawing a blank as to how to pronounce his last name. John Kirachak. He's the former CIA um, uh, clandestine operative that turned over the
Kiriakou.
Kiriakou. That's how it is. Turned over all the waterboarding materials, leaked it out, ended up going to prison for disclosing that information. But he says point blank, he says there's technology available. They can come, the FBI, CIA, uh, or NSA can come and watch you. They can crack through your television, the electronic eye on the television for the remote can be utilized as a camera, so they can watch you whenever they want.
That's not what he said. He said that they can turn your TV into a microphone even when you're not there.
I've seen him say.
But he did not say anything about a camera because I sent you that video. So
I've
just
seen
be
several
careful
of
here
them.
about. Okay, well. Anyway, let's be careful before we turn into conspiracy theory central on YouTube here. There's
don't
enough
care.
content out here. We're to talk about other things. But thumbs up, thumbs down on the movie.
Oh yeah, I liked it.
It was interesting. It's a movie that I've had to sit with for a few days at least.
I think it's about as poignant today as Network it was when it was.
That was a film that I was associating a lot with because it felt like one of those 70s movies that's a precursor that didn't understand what it was stumbling into, but because it was so ahead of its time, it still feels very classic.
Yes.
Even if the methodology was kind of dated.
Not to mention that it was good to see something with Gene Hackman that I had not seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move to Christmas Day. And for breakfast on that one, if I can find it here, this was our film pairing with After Hours from 1985, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Griffin Dunn, Rosanna Arquette, Catherine O'Hara, Tommy Chong, and Terry Garr. And we paired it with basic diner food offerings: eggs, omelets, hash, sausage, toast, pancakes, waffles, etc. Our cocktail pairings, I think, Dad, you were the only one to partake in the Bloody Marys, but those are a staple
Yes.
here in Wisconsin. Irish coffee was had by multiple people, including myself, and the espresso martini. So first off, we'll just kind of talk the diner food offerings. Nothing particularly special because we've all eaten in some form of a diner or so before, but just classic American staples for breakfast. But the cocktail pairings, I guess this is where we went and ventured out a little bit. Had the true Irish coffee, especially with your new coffee machine, which
My
does
new
work.
coffee machine and the fact that I took an Irish coffee making lesson in Ireland this summer, so I knew
There
what
you
I was
go.
doing. Yeah.
Okay, and the espresso martini. So, Dad, I know you said you didn't get one of the Irish coffees. It must have been because you were drinking too many bloodies. But, Mom, I think you and I both had the Irish coffee.
Yes.
It was not exactly what I was expecting. It was like having a very strong alcoholic coffee.
Yes. I had one later on.
Yeah, I think you had one in another day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could be.
Over the weekend.
But I did enjoy the espresso martini, and you had gotten, I think, chewable or edible
chocolate
coffee
covered
beans.
coffee beans. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we
anything
did
you
the
want to say
espresso
about either of these?
martinis with the whipped cream and the coffee bean on top for garnish. So yeah, check out the photos. They look
Okay.
good. Even the Irish coffee.
Yep. Okay, and I don't recall if I had posted these specifically as part of this or not. I know that I did on our Discord feed, but obviously that's not available to the general public. But if I haven't put up some of the photos, I will definitely do that here at some point or another. However, for the film, directed by Martin Scorsese, I will clear out and let Mom start. Go ahead. First impressions on After Hours.
It's odd. The whole film is odd. I can't say that I didn't enjoy it. I think I enjoyed the experience of watching it, but it took a lot of, I think for myself, concentration to keep going with the flow of the film. And yeah, I think there was just a lot of really odd behavior by odd sort of people, and it was a nightmare. I think for the poor guy that was the lead in the movie. So again, it wasn't that I didn't necessarily enjoy the film. I think I had to take some time to think about this film, and yeah, I don't have a whole lot other to say about it. I think Terry Garr played a pretty good character. Of course, we've seen her in other things, but she was actually in two of our movies during the holiday. She was in another of the films that we watched too. So yeah, outside of that, I just felt sorry for the character. So everything that could happen did happen to him.
The whole premise of the thing is that Griffin Dunn's character is living or working this very boring, uh, stale, drab life, with this very stoic, boring job. And so he's looking for an opportunity to have some excitement. So he starts out with a little bit of excitement and it spirals completely out of control, only for him to end up back at his place of work the next morning, walking in and sitting and him reveling in the fact that he can sit and be boring again.
I guess, yeah.
Let's just say to watch this entire film in one sitting got to be a little much for me. This is very much a experiential film. It is not necessarily my cup of tea with all of this. So yeah, it was. I faded in and out of being able to like concentrate on the film a lot during this one. I think I got the abstract portions of the film, I guess, but it was not something I necessarily enjoyed.
The best part of this was me visualizing Marty sitting there giggling because this is his sense of humor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I I don't know. I have really nothing to compare it to when it comes to some of this. I guess the few pieces of Taxi Driver where it's much more fantasy, kind of like the ending scenes of Taxi Driver, kind of lead me to believe this, but there's really nothing from a modern setting that I've seen that I could compare to this. I guess from what I've heard, Shutter Island is somewhat close to this, I guess, but I don't know. I haven't seen Shutter Island. I don't know. He's made a lot of historical dramas and biopics in the last 20 years. I mean, outside of The Departed, you've got Gangs of New York, which I think is somewhat lifted from historical events.
Yes.
You've got The Aviator, which is most definitely a biopic. You have Shutter Island, okay, fine, but The Wolf of Wall Street is basically a biopic. Silence, which is based on historical events, but again, combining his own Catholicism and such. So there's not like anything abstract or really artsy about that. You have The Irishman, again, based on historical events, and Killers of the Flower Moon, based on historical events. So I guess the Marty I'm more familiar with of this era, even from the 90s, like Casino is not like this, Goodfellas is not like this. I haven't seen Cape Fear, but I have really nothing to compare it to and like pair it up with. It just
It's
okay.
Marty trying to be funny or thinking something's funny in doing the film, and it did not do very well. So I equate this to Spielberg's attempt at humor, 1941.
Okay.
Some people just don't do humor well.
I mean, Wolf of Wall Street is very funny. But that's like the closest he's going to come.
Yes.
I mean, it's funny because it's so over the top, it's absurd. But anyway. All right. Anything left over to say about After Hours or any of these?
No, I don't think so.
I don't have to say it again.
Yeah, I think
Fair enough.
once was enough.
Okay. So we move on to our film of the evening for Christmas evening, and that was Another Round from 2019 by director Thomas Vinterberg, starring Mads Mikkelsen, Thomas Bo Larsen, Maria Bonnevie, I think it is, and Lars Rantha. This was our hors d'oeuvres day, specifically because somebody said they wanted to be outside the kitchen. So I thought they'd I don't know, get some ready-made taquitos or something, some mozzarella sticks, and just put them on like a baking pan. No, somebody had to go to a lot more trouble to make cheese steak garlic loaf, mustard kielbasa bites, fruit skewers, which I don't think, did we get the fruit skewers in on this?
I don't think they ever got out. Yeah.
Yeah. Prosciutto wrapped mozzarella bites and bacon wrapped asparagus, which again, because we had used asparagus, I guess the night before, we didn't end up having the bacon wrapped asparagus either. So this was kind of a hodgepodge of things, a smorgasbord, if you will. But we paired this with a few holiday drinks, including the eggnog and Irish cream that you'd already previously made, so that you didn't have to be in the kitchen very much. Right. So anything you want to say on any of the hors d'oeuvres that you did make?
I think I really enjoyed the prosciutto wrapped mozzarella, but I think I need to use a little bit thicker slices of mozzarella and probably not bake it quite so long, but the combination was really excellent, I think. I also liked the cheesesteak. That was really good too. I'd made homemade French bread. I'd gotten deli roast beef and combined it with the cheese, and I thought it made a really tasty hors d'oeuvre. Everybody was about ready, to have a half a sandwich at that point. So,
yeah.
So I thought those were new for me, and I thought those were really good. So I would do them again. Just try it a little differently so they didn't melt all over the pan.
I am not a big prosciutto fan, but even I was impressed by those. And I always enjoy basically anything cheesesteak, so that was like right in my wheelhouse.
Oh, I also made the fried ravioli. I think that we didn't get
that's
that
right. You did.
Yeah, and those were also really good.
I think you went out of your way and stopped looking at this selection and this menu item that day. You just kind of did your own thing.
Maybe so.
But since we don't have anything really to comment on for the cocktail pairing, unless you want to say all of the things that you go through to make your own homemade eggnog and Irish cream.
No, I have a recipe from an old friend for the Irish cream, and that's always kind of just been a nice family favorite, something a little bit of an aperitif after dinner. And I like making homemade eggnog. I think it tastes so much better than anything that you can buy in a carton, and it gives it a little personality. So that's also fair. Become a family favorite. My friends all know they get, a bottle of homemade eggnog at Christmas. In a Christmas basket with all kinds of goodies, and so that's just a staple anymore.
And I do my part all year round to empty bottles for you to make it.
Yeah, I reuse bottles. So Dana drinks out the bourbon, and I put the eggnog in the used bourbon bottles. So
fair enough. Now, as for the movie this evening, Dad and I had both previously watched it probably in 2019, I would guess. And this is about when the dad started trying to compete with me to make sure that he'd watch at least the major categories for the Oscars. He's not been nearly as successful as I have. But with that being said, Another Round. This was a film that I kind of wanted to share with everybody. I think Sarah enjoyed it. I can't say that John watched it at all because it was in subtitles. So this might have been one where I put it on the list not thinking they were going to be there. But Mom, you are the newbie to this film. This is the first watch for you. What did you take away from the film?
I found it difficult to follow.
Okay.
Um, and, you know, after several days of cooking and yeah, I don't remember a whole lot, to be honest, and I fell asleep the last few minutes of the film. So I think it's something I'm gonna have to rewatch when I have more focus. I know I missed a lot. So unfortunately, I can't tell you a whole lot about the film because I don't remember a whole lot. And it was also 10 days ago. So
Yeah.
lots has
Okay.
happened since then. So unfortunately, I'm not able to say a whole lot other than the fact that I think in order to understand it, and I think I was having difficulties kind of, like I said, following it and trying to figure out what they were doing. It would be better for me to rewatch it and then go, ah.
I will say for my part on this and rewatching it, I got about just the same vibe that I did the first time, even if I knew where things were headed. Was that the same for you, Dad?
I got a little bit more out of it this time around.
Okay. Such
So,
as?
well, I guess really it wasn't as much about the consumption of alcohol as it was about being mindful. And
Right.
how you can easily get into the rut of just kind of existing instead of living. And as a result, you lose so much of yourself and of the day to day life that you have. Um,
It was a vehicle by which the story was told, but the story was not about their alcohol consumption. It was how the alcohol consumption made them wake up to the rest of their reality and all the things that they hadn't been paying attention to in their own lives, to the detriment of other people around them.
I just saw it as destructive, I guess, self-destructive, and I guess maybe I was more focused on the alcohol consumption and how sad the whole situation was that I wasn't
Well,
really getting other things out of it.
the reason why I enjoy the film, and it's not because, obviously Wisconsin has a drinking culture unlike any other, including the Europeans. But this film to me talks a lot about, and there's a specific line that his wife delivers to him later that says, we didn't break up or we didn't have our fight or whatever else, and I didn't start sleeping around because you didn't have any joy. It's because you just weren't there. Like your mind was not in it. You were distant at all times. You seemed to be so unjoyful that it was hard to be around you. And for all of these guys, again, they're looking for some jolt to their life that will aid them in finding joy again. And the alcohol consumption is a vehicle to getting to that point, but there's a larger piece, and this is why I often talk about when we're on the show, the difference between plot and story. There's the plot. These guys all start consuming alcohol because they need something else in their lives. But then there's the story. They find that they're missing something in their lives and don't find it because of the alcohol, but because of how the alcohol, as they continue to increase the volume by which they're being drunk, going from that initial where you just need to be buzzed to we're going to go up to like dangerous levels, that the alcohol consumption didn't make them find something, but because of their destructive decisions, they found something on the way.
it's not really destructive decisions. It's the fact that they were paying attention to how the alcohol was impacting them. And as a result, they started paying better attention to their lives and what was going on around them, which they had not been doing.
So I think it's a much more profound film, and I found a lot of joy in it, particularly by the end, where it does seem to come around on a lot of the messages of the film for me. I recently was suggested a different Vinterberg film from, I think, either 2012 or 2013 called The Hunt, which is a much more difficult and darker film to watch, but I think has his same similar touch. So if you enjoyed this film, I would say that I would also recommend the other one.
Okay.
I won't tell you what it's about in advance because you may not watch it then. But yeah, has a lot of relevancy. Anyway, and hello, Mr. Corns. It does appear that he is now joined us for this evening. All right, moving on to the 26th here. And let's pull up our breakfast menu. Oh, no, we didn't have a breakfast menu.
Didn't do
That's right.
anything on the 26th. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead, we had our traditional pizza night. And pizza on Fridays for the Duncans has been our tradition for 37 years, more
Yes.
than my lifetime.
Yes.
Now,
Right,
we
so
were
when we were
supposed
first-
to pair different cocktails, which we didn't end up doing. So we really don't have much to say there. We got pizza from a local establishment, I will say that much, that you both enjoy as much. But we paired it with, and I described this film because Mama asked me in advance, what is this film about? And I said, it's about a pizza delivery guy, which it was.
It was.
But we watched Spike Lee's seminal Do the Right Thing from 1989, starring Spike Lee with Danny Aiello, John Turturro, Rosie Perez, and Giancarlo Esposito. Now, Dad and I have covered this for the show twice. So let's cut to Mom. What were your first impressions of the film?
I thought it was, I don't want to say eye-opening necessarily, but I think it made me think about that time frame. Of course, it was in the early 80s or close to 90. And the first thing, of course, I noticed all the clothing styles because that's the time when I was also in high school, all those things. But, you know, growing up in Wisconsin or in Minnesota, you don't think of all of those racial aspects that are taking place in big cities. I was rather sheltered from all of that. Not that I didn't know it didn't exist, but I was never exposed to any of that. And so, okay, I'd seen West Side Story, right? So you got all of the, you know,
That's,
Wow.
do the right thing in
that's
West Side
okay,
Story.
so it's not the
You're
same,
really
but
sounding white here, Chris.
yes. Well, what am I supposed to do? Yeah.
Yes, the cheesy
But-
gangs for musicals really compare to
But this
downtown
film made
Brooklyn.
me sad, actually, I think, because
Okay.
they just couldn't see the forest for the trees. You know, that their differences should have been bringing them together and instead were pulling them apart and making them angry. And yet each of the cultures that was portrayed had something to offer. And they just couldn't see how to pull those together. And so for me it was kind of a heartbreaking film. I loved the whole idea of the pizzeria and the fact that it, you know, somebody was going to light it on fire. You know, the fact that the fight broke out, and I'm thinking, why? This wasn't necessary. Um, so yeah, it made me sad.
Well, that's interesting that, I mean, I guess I understand, but I've never really had that kind of a reaction personally from it. I think the film is incredibly impactful. That's really neither here nor there. And the more often that I've watched it, Sarah kept trying to reduce the film to it's about racism. And I said, Sarah, no, it's not. Because it's larger than just reducing it to the one word that's a tagline or a buzzword. I think often Spike Lee is put into this box where we say he's I don't know, he's examining racism all the time. And to be fair, some of his movies do go like heavily into that. Like Black Klansman is clearly about racism. Like I'm
I
not gonna
think it's more
sugarcoat that.
multicultural.
Well, but because the prejudice is from all sides, this is where like you could make it a two-dimensional film like Black Klansman is, where it's about a black guy infiltrating the KKK and the weirdness that goes around about it. But that's meant to be for somewhat of a comedic element. This film while it does have some comedy to it, it's not really about that for me. And instead, the film is much larger about everybody's personally held prejudices, because the black characters in this are prejudicial against the Italians, against the Koreans, against the Hispanics. I mean, there's so many different layers of people having some form of prejudice or animosity that's unnecessary, boiling over into this much larger thing. But it's in the melting pot of a mixed neighborhood like this. I mean, you have the guy who's a Larry Bird jersey wearing white guy who's just running down the street, but he owns his brownstone across the street from the Italian pizzeria owned by these Italian American guys who really don't live in the neighborhood, but they're part of the neighborhood fabric,
Right.
mixed with the radio station across the street with Senior Love Daddy. I mean,
Yeah.
there's all these different pieces to it of all these people interacting on a regular basis, and it culminates in this explosion. But you could see
Well,
that anywhere, and I think that's why the film has such resonance, is that it could have happened in any place, and we see this all too often.
Right.
well, the just exploring the Danny Ayala's character. Um, I mean, in one sentence, he's telling his boys, "You need to be respectful of these people because they're eating our pizza, and that we're a community, for them, et cetera, et cetera." And then the next minute, he's using N words and taking a baseball bat to a boombox because they offended him. So it's a very mixed situation and a very mixed set of signals.
Certainly. So anything else on this film that we want to briefly share? All right, moving on, because we do have quite a bit yet to get to here. So we have Breakfast for the 27th that we did here. And that was our selection for The Third Man, which we did not watch on the day. So let's just tap the brake a little bit, but we did end up getting to it after the fact. So this
Yes.
is where doing 2 of these a day started to catch up with us, and we learned our lesson for the second week. But essentially, because somebody goes to such levels of extravagance, even on stuff that I was not intending it to be, unless you're dedicating yourself to basically doing meal, movie, you weren't going to get through 2 even in the same day. I think
Yeah.
for most people that don't go to this level of detail and whatever with the meal portion of it and the meal prep, this isn't nearly as difficult, but it ended up being for us. So the second week, we only ended up doing 1 movie a day for 4 out of the 5 days. That's number 5. But we did get in The Third Man eventually, directed by Carol Reed, starring Joseph Cotton, Alida Vallee, Trevor Howard, Bernard Lee, and Orson Welles. This we paired with a European breakfast, which is somewhat of a holiday staple in our house, given the multiple people that have come through our house or have been abroad for a number of time. So this is nothing new to us. Basic cold cuts, rolls, Nutella, cheese spreads, German cheeses, soft boiled eggs, which tends to be much more of a European staple than it is necessarily American, coffee and juices, but nothing hugely uh, different. Mom, is there anything you would like to comment on here as to why we go to some of these things more than others?
So I grew up, or I mean, I spent a year as an exchange student in West Germany when it was still West and East. And breakfasts there are severely different than what we have here. And then when we have traveled abroad as a family and spent a lot of time in Germany, Dad and I were in Switzerland. We've been to various places in Europe. Breakfast is a lighter fare. You have, like you said, cold cuts, a piece of cheese. They might put tomatoes or even pickles on the table in the morning, yogurt, and soft boiled eggs. And so you have kind of a smorgasbord, but nobody eats a whole lot of any one thing. Um, and so it's we've also had foreign exchange students come into our home from these places, from different places in Europe. And they've always enjoyed that when we went to a little bit extra for us, what's for us. Normally, when I go home to Germany, my host mom goes down to the bakery, buys all the rolls, goes to the meat Metzger, the meats butcher, gets all of the meats and we get cheeses and that kind of stuff. And so she's already got a lot of these things. So, but they go every day for fresh bread, and that's not something that we do here. So it takes a little bit of extra to make a European breakfast because I don't have to, but I make fresh bread, get fresh rolls. I did buy some focaccia that I did not make personally, that we put in, that was very good with the eggs.
For
So
shame.
I I've tried it once. It didn't turn out the best, so that's on my list to retry since I love baking bread. So,
Yes, you
but
do.
yeah, so every holiday we at least try to have a European breakfast. Once there was a year, I think it was in 2007 or 2008, where we had 18 people with us over the holidays. They were all from Europe, from Belgium, France, Spain, and Germany, and Italy. And so we had a European breakfast almost every single day. And the ladies that were with us were also helping me make it. So we went through a lot of bread. Um, and so that was really fun having this big long table all holiday long. We were snowed in and did a lot of fun cooking together. So it's just been a historical thing for us.
Now, the cocktail pairings for this one were fiaker, which did we make that?
Yes,
Okay, because I don't recall having that. I think I
it was
had the
with
Austrian
coffee.
75.
Yes, it was with coffee. Yes, and I actually very much enjoyed it. I think that was one of my favorites.
Okay.
I'm trying to
The
remember
Aust-
what was in it. I think rum.
Yes.
hmm
well, we'll
And I'm
have to
not a big
get
rum
to
drinker, but it was good with the coffee. Hmm?
our consumption of the French 75s here momentarily, which always go down well, and
Yes.
then yeah, but the Austrian 75 was a short jog from that.
hmm
I don't enjoy them as much as the French 75s, but they're still decent.
hmm That was with the grapefruit juice and the cranberry juice and the champagne. So yes.
Now, for the third man, we didn't watch this on the day. We did have to go back after the fact. But when we did, this is a movie that I watched for the AFI Top 100, I believe. And that was probably about 6, 7 years ago. And then I really wanted to show Dad this movie. So I put it on the schedule probably about 2-ish years ago. That sounds about right. And he enjoyed the film, which I was very happy about. So I was trying to expose everybody else to this. I don't remember if how many other people might have joined us for this particular movie or not,
Oh, Sarah and
but
John both were there.
okay. But for a first time, Mom, what did you think of the film?
I enjoyed it. I like the mystery aspect of it, I think, that they just kept saying that there were the two, but he knew for sure that there was a third person that was there and that so for me it was kind of I would compare, an Agatha Christie or they were trying to locate a missing link. And it really kept my attention and I really enjoyed the film actually. So
I think it's a good old classic film that anybody who kind of likes thrillers and kind of spy stuff that from the early age can really get into. I don't know if it holds up for me as well with multiple viewings, but it's a good first watch that I've been able to show people and share this movie with. So I'm glad that you enjoyed that. Dad, did you get anything more out of this on this version or this watch?
It tended to make a little more sense at times as to what exactly was going on in the unraveling of it. It was a lot of trying to figure stuff out the first time around. It was a little
Hmm.
easier to grasp and to pick up some of the more subtle nuances of why they decided to use the Dutch angles for cinematography when they did and such. So to that extent, yes, I was able to pick up a little bit more.
And it has one of my favorite film scores that's somewhat idiosyncratic with the zither music. Um, so if you haven't watched this one, definitely a recommend.
Mm-hmm.
All right, going to our evening of the 27th for dinner. We went a little bit more extravagant than we normally otherwise would, and we watched one I consider probably 1B of my favorite westerns. I don't know if it's also 1B for Dad because we both mutually have, I think, the same top two western films that we enjoy. But we have The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance from 1962, directed by John Ford, starring Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne, Vera Miles, Lee Marvin, Woody Strode, and Lee Van Cleef. Dinner for the evening came straight out of the movie, and it was steak with the fixins, whatever the hell that means, mashed or baked potatoes, beans, and deep dish apple pie. Now, as far as the dinner construction and the rest of it, anything we'd like to comment on here? I thought the steak was fairly well done for what we normally have, and I think you've kind of honed in on what your steak making skills are. I do it slightly differently than you do, but other than that, like I don't really have any complaints, and you season it quite well. The mashed potatoes and such. I mean, I'm not a big fan of baked beans personally, but and then we got a little creative with the deep dish apple pie, having it in individual like soup container type things with just basically a lattice over the top. But it worked for what we were trying to do essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But for either of you, anything to take home or take away from our meal for that evening?
No, I enjoyed it, and I always love baked beans.
Not sure they
Yeah, I
always
was
love
gonna
us
say
after that.
we made ribeyes, which are my favorite cut of steak, and baked potatoes with we had bacon bits and cheese and sour cream and butter and chives and not chives but green onions. So we had all kinds of things, and then we did um sautéed mushrooms and onions to go over the steak. So I thought it was all it's kind of I wouldn't say untypical for us to have steak and baked potatoes, but
Yeah.
Now, as far as the cocktail pairings on this one, we had a Frontier Old Fashioned, which I did not have, but Dad, I believe you had one.
I didn't have
yes,
one.
yeah, you did. That's
Yeah,
what
I
Sarah
know
was
you had
making.
I
Old
had 3.
Fashions, but
Oh, yeah,
oh,
I was gonna say
okay. Yeah,
he enjoyed those. That was with the
Mhm.
rye bourbon, I think, right?
Well,
Those are the ones we did
no,
with the
no.
rye bourbon. Oh,
Okay, that's a not. It's either rye or bourbon.
all
Okay,
right.
because it has to do with the grain content. It was or an old fashioned is supposed to be with rye whiskey, and that's what it was. But we
Yep.
added the sassafras.
Oh, yeah, the sarsaparilla, um, not extract, but yeah,
okay. There's
yeah.
sarsaparilla or there's sassafras, and you somehow
No,
split the difference and said,
sarsaparilla. It was a sarsaparilla like liqueur that we
"Yeah, I
added to
understand," but
it.
he kept trying to say sassafras, but anyway,
Oh,
it's
yeah, no,
sarsaparilla.
sarsaparilla.
Sarsaparilla. All right.
Mhm.
Anyway, it had enough or had just enough of that in it that it gave it a unique or more
Right.
flavorful version of an old
Twist.
fashioned.
Right. And then
And
whatever the other one was that I'm trying to
it was a
stagecoach?
Stone
No,
Fence, which
Stone
was a
Fence.
cider-based drink, which I
Right,
specifically
John.
put on the menu for my sister's significant other, who is much more of a cider man himself,
Yeah.
which he apparently seemed to enjoy a lot more than I did. I thought it would be a little bit sweeter or at least a little more savory, and it just whatever Sarah made, it was very strong, and I just didn't care for it.
Yeah, but they became his favorite, and she asked him to, or he asked her to get the thing so that they could make him at home. So he really liked those. Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I didn't hear comments from Sarah or John on The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Your biggest comment was, is I believe, I haven't sat down and actually watched it in its entirety, but what are your first impressions on this one? This is obviously a favorite of Dad's and mine, so what did you get out of the film?
Yeah, it was neat watching it from start to finish. I'd caught different pieces of it. Dad's watched it before, on an afternoon when he's flipping channels and it happens to be on. I know my dad has seen it many times, and so I've seen clips of it, but I love Jimmy Stewart. And I guess I've never thought about him being in a Western before. So for me to see him in that role was fun. And he still played that heartwarming character, right? Who's going to take care of everybody and always the gentleman. And yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. I'm not a big Western person, that's just not my cup of tea, but this was actually a good story. So I would
I
watch
think
it again.
it's I think it's got a much grander story about things in the Western, and it's not so like deconstructive in the way that like Unforgiven is. And some people love Unforgiven for kind of trying to pick that apart and digress the Western, I guess, a little bit. This is more of a celebration of the Western, but also of the Western culture and the end of the West and some of these other things that I
Mhm.
find fascinating from somewhat of a political confrontation, more or less, the individuality and the ruggedness of the West competing with the law and order. And so it kind of, especially as a lawyer in training, but also like recognizing of I have enjoyed westerns at times. These are two things that I understand and appreciate or have some level of personal comfort in that are competing in the movie, and I guess part of why it appeals to me as much as it does. Dad, are you still on the standpoint that John Wayne should have won supporting actor for this?
Yes. This should have been
Okay.
his not Academy Award. In fact, the reason I started watching this and became infatuated is this is a film that my dad loved and would watch whenever it was available. And his statement, true, was every time True Grit was on and John Wayne was on, he'd go, should have won for Liberty Valance.
He would have had to have beaten Ed Begley for Sweet Bird of Youth.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I've never seen it. Victor Buono in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Haven't seen that one. Telly Savalas for Birdman of Alcatraz. Haven't seen that one. Haven't seen Terrence Stamp and Billy Budd. I have seen Omar Sharif and Lawrence of Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a lot of talented big name actors.
Yeah.
Except for maybe Victor Buono, but at least he was in a film that I'm familiar with. I don't know. He wasn't even nominated, so it's
Nope.
not like it was likely to have happened, but okay.
It was kind of at this point in his career where critics started to think, that John Wayne wasn't just John Wayne.
Sure. He was more iconic.
Well, that there was a level of acting to him that nobody seemed to notice because they were so caught up in the character.
Sure. The iconography. All right, but that ends our dinner for the 27th. Now, the 28th got a little hairy because people were leaving on that Sunday, so there is one of these movies that we didn't end up watching. But first, we'll go to our breakfast from the 28th, and that involved To Catch a Thief, which we only watched later this week, with a selection from director Sir Alfred Hitchcock, starring Cary Grant, Grace Kelly, Jesse Royce Landis, John Williams, and Charles Vanel. Breakfast for this one was the sample quiche Lorraine from the director himself, side of bacon, rolls and jam, and coffee. Cocktail pairings for this one were Kir Royale, which is a very popular French drink, and the Bellini, both of which can be drunk with, I guess, breakfast or brunch or however you wanted to put it. The film, of course, is one I think we've all seen at one time or another, but any thoughts on the quiche or either of the cocktail pairings that would be newer here?
Well,
I always love quiche.
as far as the quiche goes, I'm not a big Swiss cheese fan, so unfortunately, it wasn't exactly quiche Lorraine because I made it with shredded Gouda instead of Swiss cheese. Um,
And I
but
thank you for that.
yeah, So does Sarah. So I like making quiche. It's just something different than such an American sort of egg bake, so to speak. I think the seasonings in it are a little bit different. It just seems to be a little more refined with the pie crust. And yeah, so
And
bread
of
and
course, Cary
jam.
Grant serves it to John Williams in the film.
Yeah.
Yes, which was
So,
part of the pairing of the whole thing. I'll
mhm,
be honest, this is not one of my favorite Hitchcock movies. I think it's more of a travel movie for me. Part of it is the plot is a little convoluted because you have to have so much context to like bear into the film. It's not as simplistic as some other ones
mhm,
where the plot is very simple to follow. And this one, it's just much more, again, he's like a former resistance fighter, but he's trying to prove his own innocence by it just I don't know. The writing on it doesn't hold it up for me as much. There's some good performances in it. It's extremely picturesque. If they did a restoration of this, which it looks like they clearly did, it is wonderful as far as the visual portions of it. But as
mhm.
far as the storyline and the rest of it, it's fine. Like it's not a top 10
It's not
Hitchcock for
overly
me by any
memorable.
stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's very picturesque in the south of France. So
Actually, to me, when I'm looking at this, obviously Cary Grant carries most of the movie, but I think the second best performance in this is John Williams.
yeah. And this isn't the first nor last time that he will come up for us in this list of movies. So
Mom, do you recognize who John Williams is? He
Isn't
was
he
later in his career. He did
conductor,
something.
orchestra?
No,
Did
no,
he
no, no,
do? Oh,
no.
no,
That's a different
we're
John
not
Williams.
talking. Yeah, we're not
oh,
talking the composer. And actually, it was the year before this is Dial M for Murder Dad.
Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about. This was a show, a television show that your mother
no.
watched when she was a little girl. Sebastian Cabot had a heart attack and had to leave and
Oh,
died actually, left
yes,
family
he
affair.
did. Yeah,
So his cousin,
cousin. Yeah, came to be the
the
butler.
butler, was John Williams
Okay.
for the last season of Family Affair.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything on either the Cure Royale or the Bellini?
The Curel, the first one Sarah made was a little could have taken paint off of a chair.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
think she followed the recipe.
she
Once we
didn't, and it was really, really strong. And
right.
I
Sarah
mean,
has
I'm
a
drinking
tendency to make everything a little extra strong.
Yeah. I mean, I drink straight bourbon, uniced, no water, nothing, and even that was a little tough for me to get down
Yeah,
for
I made the
that
bellinis.
early in the morning.
I
The
took some
second one was much better.
the frozen peaches and made a peach bellini with about half of the peach stuff in it, and so that wasn't near as strong. I had a sip of the other one, and it was just too much alcohol for me in the morning. I just couldn't do it.
I sucked it down, but that was the only thing I had
Yeah,
because I didn't want to be like
I think we
day
went ahead
drunk
and
that
made
early.
some, Irish coffee that morning too, though. Somebody requested it. Maybe that's when Dad requested me
Might
that
have
I
been.
make some Irish
I don't
coffee.
recall
So
because he had claimed in the second week that he didn't have one, but it maybe John really enjoyed the Irish coffees.
yes, Keith liked it too. So
And then we did have kind of a audible on our dinner for the 28th. And this is the only film out of the entire selection of the 14 different menus that we didn't end up watching. This
yeah,
was a film that I put on the list because it had been on my own watch list, and we unfortunately didn't get to this. This was M from 1931, director Fritz Lang, starring Peter Lorre, Otto Wernicke, Inga Landgut, and Gustav Grungens, I think it is. But this was supposed to be paired with my sister's significant other, John, and his preferred or his preference for dinner. We had German cabbage rolls, crusty bread, and fresh lettuce salad. The cocktail pairings for this one were some obvious German staples with Riesling or Radler.
Yep.
So we didn't end up watching the film, so nothing to comment on there. But I hadn't had the cabbage rolls before, and I guess it wasn't what I was expecting, but I still enjoyed it.
Good. Good.
I love them.
Yeah, I hadn't made them in a long time. My host mother used to make them.
I don't recall
And
having them before, and they did seem very German, but it was
Or
just
Russian.
German without being like too German
Yes.
for me.
right.
They're
I know
also very
John had
Russian.
eaten, yeah, John had eaten them at the Russian restaurant in Minneapolis that they like to frequent, and had really enjoyed them there. And he said mine were a little bit different, but altogether he really enjoyed those too. And I know he took the leftovers home for lunch. So
The Russian ones are a lot more, baked in tomato sauce. Yours were a little drier so that you could actually taste the cabbage and the meat more than you could in the Russian ones.
yeah, there's a combination of tomato and beef broth in the German cabbage roll. So
The
might not be
yeah.
quite so tomatoey.
Yeah,
I'm-
they're almost using a marinara. That's the level of thickness
Yeah.
in the Russian ones.
And I don't know if I would have enjoyed that as much when it goes like really heavy into tomato based stuff. Like if it's a hint or a compliment, like I can have it, but when it becomes like the full thing and it's like one of the few things that you taste, I'm not sure I would have enjoyed that as much. But all right. So that concludes our first week with our menus and dinner or meal and movies. So let's continue on to our second week. And this is where we had our meal for New Year's Eve, where again, we were all traveling in. A few of us had run out of gas on our way there. And so
Yeah.
we had yet another
Yeah, well,
sandwich pairing on this one. Given that there is probably the most famous scene of the movie takes place in a deli, we had either corned beef or pastrami sandwich options with basic other things, potato chips, pickles, cookies, that sort of thing. And we paired it with some New Year's drinks, specifically French 75, since it involves champagne. We had either champagne or Prosecco available as well. But because this movie also takes place in New York, we had Cosmopolitans available. I will get to all of those in a second. But the film was When Harry Met Sally, one of the preeminent New Year's Eve films, given its final scene, by director Rob Reiner, rest in peace. Stars Meg Ryan, Billy Crystal, Carrie Fisher, and the late Bruno Kirby. So, anything here to really talk about? I know that everybody enjoyed the corned beef and the pastrami sandwiches.
Yeah, I had a lot of compliments. I had different types of bread to put them on. So we had some pretzel rolls, I had ciabatta bread, we had some sourdough. So they could make a different type and get the, different types of bread, make the sandwich taste different. We had different cheeses, mustard, sauerkraut, a horseradish, and garlic aioli. So everybody kind of came in and made their own kind of sandwich, and we heated them so that they were warm. And they were a big hit too. So
Yeah.
we almost didn't have anything left over. So
I love both corned beef and pastrami, but I went with the pastrami and Swiss with horseradish on rye. Warm. I could add another one, but we didn't get enough. Didn't have
yeah,
enough
we'll
meat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for this supposed to be like deli sandwiches that are like this high, somebody didn't procure enough of the protein available for this for everyone. So
well,
we had to
sorry.
be a little skimpy. Oh well, such
Next
is life.
time.
I'd been eating
I was
so
full
much,
on
it was
my
probably okay.
now. As far as the cocktail pairings on this one, there's nothing truly new or unique. The French 75s have been a staple now for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, since
I
we
always
did one of
recommend-
our first dinner in a movie.
Correct. I recommend you only have one because they kick like a mule.
They go down so smooth, and
Yeah.
they have a
Yes,
punch
they
to them.
do. I
So,
was
but
a
they're
little
wonderful.
hungover the next morning as a result of having 3 of them.
Yeah, I stuck to
Thankfully, it
one.
wasn't like more hungover because, at 35, the hangovers hit a lot harder than at like 19. But
But
my
they're
I was
not
conservative
fine. I had
sister,
3 and I was perfectly fine
they're
because
not
I
too
drink
sweet.
water.
They're not too
yeah, that's
sweet,
not why. Anyway,
and yeah, I think they're the perfect kind of cocktail that cuts your thirst. I don't know.
I
They go
will
down
say
really well. Mm.
there was one particular participant on the evening who thoroughly enjoyed herself on multiple French 75s and Cosmopolitans,
Oh, she just kept drinking out of everybody's glass.
including stealing yours. Like, I had to put your drink on the other side of me so she didn't
I
get to it.
know. I know.
My
It's
normally
crazy.
conservative sister, Allison, um,
Yeah.
was 3 sheets to the wind.
Yeah,
Eh, more like
she was
4.
having fun.
Well,
Yeah.
And
I
she's
was
not a
having
big
fun with it.
drinker, so the both must have tasted good to her. So
Yeah, I was fine with it. I was having a good time with watching her be.
watching her, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't say that my brother-in-law seemed to be having the same time that I was, but I also
He
recognize
needs
that
to
if I didn't cut
relax.
her, yeah, I needed to cut her off at a certain point, and letting her drink out of everybody's glass was just not going to end well.
I got up and all of a sudden I had nothing left in my glass. I didn't even realize what she was doing until I came back and I'm like, well, okay, I guess I don't need any more.
But I think this went over well. Again, the film is like a favorite of most of ours that we
Yeah.
have returned to. Everybody but John had seen the film before, and he said that he really enjoyed it, and to the point that I believe Sarah thanked me for showing it to him or having
Hmm.
this available as part of it. So it's a very charming film. If you haven't watched it, wonderful by the late director Rob Reiner here, and just a fun, wholesome film that's 95 minutes. It's a classic.
Yeah,
Catch
it
it
was
Yes.
a
whenever
nice
it's on.
it made a nice New Year's Eve for sure, I think.
All right, moving to New Year's Day, and this is more of a traditional family staple for us. We had our traditional fondue, which of course goes into a lot of preparation in advance of this.
Yeah.
The only major cocktail that we paired with this was a tiramisu white Russian, which I just decided to throw that on as a tack on to that. I would have thought this would have been much more sweet. This is another one where I wonder if Sarah followed the recipe exactly because it
There were
was
several, yeah,
strong.
there were several recipes, and she said that at the bar she bartends, they have like a tiramisu vodka, but the recipe that I had for it did not have that. Um, and there were, it wasn't that it was missing something, but we did ended up getting some like a hazelnut, the frangelica, and we added a titch of that, and that actually made it better. So I don't
Well,
know, maybe you got the first one.
there's
Yeah.
supposed to be a good
The-
amount of sugar in it. And it didn't taste like there
Yeah.
was any sugar added.
Oh well, that I didn't
See,
control what sugar she put in there, so I don't know.
to me, a white Russian is almost one step below like an ice cream drink. It's a dessert drink
Right.
because it's so sweet. There was nothing sweet about this.
Yeah.
This tasted like somebody adding some sort of like liqueur, some sort of very bland liqueur to vodka.
So I
I
wasn't in
was
charge of making them. I don't know if she followed my recipe or didn't. I really don't know. So I can't say. Maybe we'll have to experiment again following the recipe I had.
I volunteer.
Okay.
yeah, I put it on specifically because I know Dad enjoys white Russians, but
Yeah.
yeah, this was not what I was expecting. I only had the one because I'm like, I really don't need to, again, be overly drunk for this. I'd like to enjoy whatever else we have, so I'll go with something else after the fact. But we did
Your
pair
history
that
with vodka is not good.
exactly, which is why I usually stick to gin instead. But our film pairing for this one was a first time watch for all of us, and this is a Billy Wilder film I had not seen to this point. This would be 1954's Sabrina, directed by Billy Wilder, starring Humphrey Bogart, Audrey Hepburn, William Holden, and again, John Williams. Not that John Williams, the other John Williams.
Mm-hmm.
So, thoughts on the fondue pairing with all of this? I mean, it's traditional to our family, but anything special? I mean, I think we all had a good time with it. Everybody enjoyed it.
Yep.
Yeah, and I know that John had never had fondue, so for him that was totally
Mhm.
brand new. There is a lot of preparation that goes into it, but I think that the whole family aspect, I mean, we sat around dinner for more than 2 hours, we had a chance to visit, no one was in a hurry to go anyplace, you know, and it's just fun to, put the stick in the oil or, whatever. And then we had a chocolate fondue for dessert, and that went over really well. So, um, yeah, it was a lot of work, but at least I had help. Both girls were around, and so it made it bearable for a group that size to have that many fondue pots out and that amount of food. It takes a little work, but
Now, I didn't
Considering
put
our
on
new
here
office is in or above a fondue restaurant, I can kind of
yes,
look forward to that at some point in time this year.
yes. Well, it's a
well,
lot
yes,
cheaper
because
to
that
make at
is
home.
the parameters of our current working bet. But yeah.
Yes.
Now, I didn't put it on here, but I wasn't sure whether you were going to go with it or not. We did end up having a chocolate fondue at the end of this as
Mhm,
well.
mhm.
I didn't provide it on the menu, but it was still part of the overall ambiance and everything else that we had for the evening. But shifting slightly here to the film, as I mentioned before, this is a first watch for, I believe, all of us. Sarah seemed to think she had seen it along the line somewhere, but she's not on this episode at the moment. So for us, first impressions.
I loved it. I thought it was a really heartwarming story. I liked the scenery. I liked um the classic cars that were in the movie. And I think I like the premise where she started out with one and then over the course of the time really realized what he was and that he wasn't the right thing for her. And yeah, and Humphrey Bogart won in the end, even though there was quite an age difference between them. So yeah, I really
Yeah,
enjoyed this film.
I did
Well,
too. I found it incredibly charming. I think
Yes.
I have this listed as a 4.5 just because there are a few small things that, like, I don't think it's a perfect film or flawless by any stretch of the imagination. There's some little things with the writing, and there's a little bit like, I think Bogart is not probably the best casting for this, but okay, like
Yeah, I thought
you
it was
can
a
look
little
past
odd,
it.
but he did well with it. He's not, I think Bogart wasn't charming. He was more of a man's man, and so to see him in a role where he's trying to flirt and it's not his thing
I think
was
that's what made
amusing,
the part so good for him
maybe.
is there was this he wasn't the charming of the two brothers. And
Right.
the fact that she and he ended up together is more about his personality, the something
The
else.
stability. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, don't get me wrong. Like, Bogart has that charming, affable quality when he wanted it to come out. Like, you can't watch Maltese Falcon to me and not think that he has that kind of smooth
Okay, there's a
operator
difference between
capability.
smooth operator and charming. There
Mm,
is. He doesn't have a soft side. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. You just never
okay.
see, except in the scene where he's in the tennis court with her. Um, there he has a little bit of a softer side, but even outside of that, through all the trouble and he was trying to, save her from things and whatever, he just didn't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the charming, I'll take care of you, just hold on,
You're talking about vulnerability.
Okay, yes, yes, that's what I was trying to put my finger on, but
Yeah.
overall, I thought
Okay.
Audrey Hepburn played the part extremely well.
Yes.
I
And
was glad to have watched this. I think I
Yeah.
had it at a 4.5 out of 5 on my letterboxd for a first watch. I mean, I was engrossed in the film. Like there wasn't really much that I thought was like there might have been a few editing spots, but nothing major. And it had that Billy Wilder. I wouldn't say like the same dripping sentimentality that you get from like Capra, but it's got kind of that like romantic charm aspect to it,
Mhm.
fantasy romantic aspect that I think Wilder often will put in his films, especially some of his earlier ones.
Well, and it was I think she fell in love with the bad boy, to start with, and then realized, well, the bad boy has some problems, so maybe that's not the best choice.
Well, I always love anything with Audrey Hepburn. So, interestingly enough, if you remember when we did A Bridge Too Far, there was the character that was the boy who would ride the bike and get reconnaissance information about German troops in Holland. In part, that character in that film was based upon Audrey Hepburn's real life. While she was a teenager, she would ride her bike and count German soldiers and then go back and report it. And her mother, aunt, somebody was radioing it into to the Allies for troop positioning. So she was a member of the Dutch underground.
Hmm.
So by the time she got to Hollywood, I think she could handle about anything.
Okay, so then moving on to our film from the third, we didn't do anything on the second because we were again having pizza and we just wanted to take a day
We had
off, take it
worked.
a
We
little
had
easier.
Yeah, we were working too, so
But we paired the film Julie and Julia from 2009, directed by Nora Ephron, starring Meryl Streep, Stanley Tucci, Chris Messina, Amy Adams, and Jane Lynch, with the signature dish out of this, the bouffe or beef bourguignon, mashed potatoes, lettuce salad, and French bread. Cocktail pairing on this was a sidecar or just basic red wine. I think we had a Beaujolais, if memory serves correctly.
we
Yes.
did. We had a Beaujolais, which is also, French wine, beef
Yes.
bourguignon.
I did have
Yeah.
the leftovers for the beef bourguignon for lunch today, so
Yes.
wasn't too bad as far as that goes.
And I thought my mashed potatoes turned out superb, so
Yes.
Yes, well, John couldn't stop raving about them.
Again, it's Gordon
to the point.
Ramsay's class
Yeah.
on how to make mashed potatoes.
Yes. Yes. And he right away bought her a potato ricer. So, but I got a recipe about 4 years ago, I think, for beef bourguignon out of the New York Times, and I made it for Dad and I, and was so impressed with myself that we we made it again at Christmas for the family. And I don't know, I make it once or twice a year, I think. It's an easy dish actually to make. It's a little on the front end, but it takes a while to cook in a Dutch oven. And with mashed potatoes, I think it's a really classic, delicious dish. The beef in it sort of falls apart, and it's yummy. So I do enjoy making it.
The sidecar was a little different than I remembered it being, but still enjoyable. The Beaujolais worked well with what we had for dinner. And
Mhm.
then I think as far yes, Peterson, this is a mashed tater conversation apparently. Anyway,
He
Yeah.
hasn't had my mashed potatoes.
he would be somebody that we would comment on would be called the tater. Anyway, caught the tater. But as far as the movie, I mean, it's a charming movie. It's Nora Ephron's last film that she made. I don't think anybody's really bad in it. It's not something that's going to expand beyond the material, but it's, a decent film. I hadn't seen it since we saw it in theaters in 2009 or whatever, but certainly, it was enjoyable. I didn't have any problem rewatching it by any stretch, but it's not something I'm going to probably go out of my way to put on again. It was just an excuse to see a nice film that paired something all together.
Well, I think it made the girls and I think about the fact that for years now I've been talking about making a cookbook of all of our family recipes. And this movie made me think, well, maybe someday, a generation or two from now, I'll have a granddaughter who will work her way through my cookbook and try to discover who our family was through the recipes that we shared and
Make
the
sure you
classic
put in all the
things.
cocktails. So this way she understands who I was.
Yeah, that's not so much my thing, but I just found it interesting how she tried to recreate things and created that feeling. And at one point during the movie, she says, "I just feel like she's standing right here with me every time I cook." And so I get that feeling. I understand that when I'm making something my mom made or my grandmother made, that I feel like they're there with me while I'm making it. And I make caramel rolls, Tom, and use grandma's pans. So I don't know. For me, you know, because I enjoyed cooking so much, it was a poignant movie and it made me stop to think about what legacy I might be leaving.
Whenever I have
Okay.
hamburger helper or tuna helper, I think of my mom.
I can't say I didn't make those when we were first married either, but I've come a long way.
You made them a lot longer than when you were first married. You were making those like what till I was 10.
Maybe.
But
Okay. But
whatever. I
that's
mean,
been a long time ago.
Yeah.
it was not a favorite staple of mine to have hamburger or tuna helper, but whatever. I guess I survived. Beggars
And
can't
now
That's
be
the
I
only
still
thing
choosers.
my
make
mother could
tetrazzini.
make
I
that was
make tuna
edible.
tetrazzini, but I make it from a recipe instead of out of a
Yeah.
box.
Okay, so going to our last menu item, and this was yesterday, so this should be fresh in everybody's mind. We were working on the film Summertime from 1955, directed by David Lean, starring Katharine Hepburn, Rossana Brazzi, Darren McGavin, Gaetano Autiero, and the dinner was cheese ravioli, which you had two different sauces for, Italian sausage, lettuce, salad, garlic bread, and of course, we just had a red wine pairing because it is Italy. Uh, so
Yeah, we
on the
had an
dinner
Italian
itself,
red one. Anyway.
you did make a full um, homemade ravioli by hand.
I
So
did.
made the
I
dough,
hand rolled the dough and filled it with a 3 cheese filling, and then I made just a standard marinara. And I also made something that was a little bit new for us. I made a garlic butter with a splash of white wine, parsley, and red pepper flake sauce that was very light, in my opinion,
yep,
even though it was a butter sauce, and then sprinkled fresh grated Parmesan cheese over the top of that. And then, yes, we had an Italian sausage that I braised on the stove. Um,
which I'll be honest, I don't know which one of the two sauces I preferred most. And I tend to be much more of like a cream or a garlic sauce person compared to red. And I also kind of prefer white wine to red. But in this particular case, I thought they both worked really well. As I mentioned yesterday, I thought you had put a nice sear on the Italian sausage to kind of get that extra flavor into it that I particularly enjoyed. So I very much enjoyed what we had yesterday, even if it was just between the three of us and whatever else. I wish I could say as much for the movie. I was rather bored by this. And for a good portion of the film, I thought it was like just your average travel film where we're going
Yes.
to film a big movie star in a foreign locale and have it on location where nothing really all that much happens in the plot. But we're going to have a story anyway, and it's going to take people to an adventurous place like Venice.
I enjoyed the film for the sightseeing because Dana and I were there
Sure.
back in
Yeah.
2012,
No, it wasn't.
somewhere around
It was
there.
like 2007. It was
No,
before
I thought
we
it was.
started the office.
No, it couldn't have been because you met up with
No,
both two
no,
exchange students you had after
after we opened the
2007.
office, yeah, because it was Marika um,
Simon.
and Simon, yeah.
And Marika
So, well,
wasn't there until
anyway,
'09, and
and I
Simon was there in
realized
'08.
that Venice really
So
hadn't
it's
changed.
2010.
The only thing that I missed was the fact that they didn't show Venice in the rain and what happens when it rains in Venice. But the buildings, the bridges, I mean, it was all
Yeah.
just like I was there last week, and
Sure.
so I enjoyed the movie for that, and I was disappointed in the ending. I think when I watch that kind of film, I want the guy to get the girl, you know,
Ugh.
and she just walked away. I mean, I totally got it. I totally understand why she did what she did and everything, but it's just not what you are used to when you're gonna watch sort of a romance
But
film,
sometimes
even an older one.
the
So,
girl does walk away. And then she has to
well,
Sure
crawl
does.
back several months later.
yeah. Well, I mean, she had reason to walk away, but still,
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
and
it
I
was a
think it
little on the
actually was
disappointing side.
I think this was the fitting ending for everything that had gone on up to this point. But overall, I'm much more impressed by some of David Lean's other work.
You
Just
forgot to
personally.
mention I made a fresh loaf of bread. I made like a rustic Italian bread to
yeah.
go
Well,
with
as
our
you well
ravioli.
know, I'm not really impressed by bread. So
It's a downfall.
Yeah.
okay.
I enjoy
It's just
making bread,
But like I
so
said,
somebody's got to eat it.
David Lean had directed this, and Katharine Hepburn had been at a cocktail party, and whoever had backed out of the film or directing The Bridge Over the River Kwai, the producer was lamenting this, and Katharine Hepburn recommended David Lean to direct the film, and so they met, and that's how he got the job. So to that extent, this film at least provided two of Hollywood's great classics in three really: The Bridge Over the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia, and Dr. Zhivago.
okay.
But
So
yeah, when we were picking out movies, we were looking for something to go with ravioli.
Yeah, this is the lone movie I did not pick. You had already picked this out because you and Sarah wanted to make this together. She unfortunately had to leave early due to weather considerations and whatnot, being in Wisconsin and it being winter in January. But
Freezing rain, yeah.
yeah,
regardless,
But
I enjoyed the dinner. The movie, eh,
eh, it was okay, but I'm glad I saw it. It was a Katharine Hepburn movie I hadn't seen, so now I can
sure.
say I saw it.
2 out of 5 stars for me on my letterbox,
I think I gave it the same.
which I then pointed out that it's Katharine Hepburn, and David Lean does a great job with the cinematography and the camera,
Yes. Yes.
which he's well known for his great eye as to how to set things and how to set the camera. But it was kind of a boring film. The writing wasn't that great. I know it was based upon a play,
Mm.
and I don't know why they would take that and turn it into a movie, but they did. So, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, they picked a
This
really good-looking man to play the hero of the story.
Oh yeah, of course. This is why you wanted her to end up with the man at the end of the movie because you wanted to end up with the man at the end of the movie.
No, just yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, I know where I sit.
Hey, I cooked for you all holiday, but you can't
Oh
say
god.
anything.
Okay, I love your cooking. All right, but you cook because you like to cook.
I
Yeah.
know.
Don't make this about the rest of us.
Ah,
Okay.
We would have been okay had you taken a couple of days off or whatever else. But I'll mention this: the menus and all of this episode, this live episode, and everything we're doing here is all because you asked us to do it.
Yes.
yeah, okay.
So just putting that out there. But that was our last meal and movie selection, and all of our fun and whatnot you can relive over on our socials. I don't know if I have pictures for everything that we had during the course of this. I think there were a few meals that I just missed because as I've slowly taken over our social accounts from the aforementioned Scooby-Doo villain that previously popped up in this episode on the chats feature on YouTube. But I really don't like posting. It feels dirty all over for me. I don't like sharing that much of myself in such a public setting. And you'd think that like on a podcasting thing, but there's like this weird separation where I'm only having a conversation between the three of us that other people get to hear, as opposed to like I'm sharing it with the world and then everybody gets to comment and do all. I don't know. It's a weird feedback
It
loop
was
in my
just
own head.
food.
I don't know. It's somewhat of like an inferiority complex that I'm sure I possess. But regardless, that was our last selection. So we have 14 different menus that we paired with various different films, and obviously we'd encourage you to try and do a few of these on your own, figure out what works,
Or use
come
our
up with your own
menus.
pairings. Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
share your
do
pairings
whatever.
with
But
us. We can try them out.
yeah. So
So I just wish more people could have had some of the food that went along with the film. Oh well.
well, they would have to come up to Wisconsin in December and January in order to
Yeah.
do so. But and there might be a few people that are willing, but there are also just as many who probably don't want to freeze their ass off.
It was kind of cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
It's supposed to be warmer this week, but that's no consolation. But regardless,
Yes, in the upper 30s. Woo!
hey, in Madison, it's supposed to be in the low to mid 40s all week.
Shorts weather.
We're having a heat wave. Yes, it is most definitely shorts weather. I was unloading the car today in nothing but my t-shirt because everything else felt too warm.
In nothing but your t-shirt?
That's correct. No coat, no sweater.
Pants?
It made it sound like
Oh,
you didn't
yeah,
have
okay.
pants on.
Touche.
Oh my goodness. Anyway.
Okay.
Well,
I did
thanks
have
for
shoes on.
humoring me, Tom.
You're welcome. But any final comments on our 2025 holiday, 2026 holiday?
No, it was a lot of work doing so many, but I thoroughly enjoyed the experience because cooking for me is fun and it gave me something to look forward to.
I think if we do this again in the near future, either for the next set of holidays a year from now or something else somewhere in there, we'll probably pare it down and make it a little less cumbersome, because even though some of them we got through to a day, it became the only thing that we did, and I don't want to be forced into doing it like it's like mandatory, and that's just not
It didn't
quite
leave
as
time
fun.
to play games or just visit or
or
I
be
understand.
like
Yeah.
you were on a schedule, and so
Right.
that would be the only drawback I would have for it. But other than that, like for the content portion of it, there's a part of me that's a little glad it's over, because now we can just be more flexible on stuff, and we don't have to be quite so regimented for the sake of content. But still, I think that overall it accomplished what we wanted it to, and it gave everybody some ability to have anticipation of what was next, be excited about things, be challenged by different movies and favorites, allowed me to share some of what I enjoy, what Dad enjoys, what you enjoy, and put that all in a mixture together to relate to everybody. And everybody kind of had their own hand or part in what everything was going on. And it didn't feel like anybody was unincluded during the process, which I guess is the big positive that I would place on this overall.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think this was at least mildly successful, and we'll see what we might have in store for next year. But I suppose that'll do it for us for this live episode here on YouTube. And I know that it's been mislabeled, if you've been watching this live, as the James Bond rankings from last week, because I'm still figuring out this whole live episode type thing and how it works or doesn't work on our streaming platform for YouTube. And I'll figure that out slowly as we kind of go along here. But otherwise, parting shots here, and we'll see you on our next episode, which will be coming up on the 14th. Again, that's a week from Wednesday, where we'll be covering Sabotage with Mike Emmel from Cinemus. Otherwise, we'll see you then, and thanks for stopping by.